we're going to solve quadratic equations, and the first thing we always want to look at is, can we factor? Turns out we can't factor this one, so we have two options: either complete the square or quadratic formula. In this case, I would use quadratic formula because we have a coefficient out front that's not 1, it's a 3. So I'm going to use the quadratic formula. Just as a reminder, you'll be provided the quadratic formula. It's opposite b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You'll be provided for that on the exam. So our a is going to be 3, our b is 10, and our c is negative 2. So when we fill in our formula, opposite b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. Now, when I simplify that, we get a negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 100 plus 24 all over 6. So I'm going to keep simplifying here, plus or minus the square root of 124 all over 6. We would need to simplify this radical here. So 124 is 2 times 62. 62 is 2 times 31. We can pull these 2's out right here. So we've got negative 10 plus or minus 2 square root of 31 all over 6. Now, negative 10, 2, and 6 all have something in common. They have a 2 in common, so we can simplify this to negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 31 all over 3. That is our answer. That is what x equals. Now, skipping over here to number 3, we can't factor this one either, and so what I would do is I would complete the square because 30 is an even number. Remember, completing the square means we're looking for things, this to be a perfect square here. So we're going to move this over to the other side by subtracting 225 from both sides. So you get y minus 225 equals, or 0 sorry, this is a 0 because we're solving it. That's a 0. X squared plus 30x plus blank. Now, to fill in that blank, we're going to take this, divide it by 2, and then square it. So that would be 15 squared, which, hey, guess what, is 225. Look at that. It was actually a perfect square to begin with. So when I add 225 to the other side, we're actually going to see the original thing again, which means we can factor this after all. X plus 15, x plus 15. Now, if this wasn't something we could factor, we would factor what we've been given over here, like x plus 15 squared, and that would equal some number. We take the square root of both sides and move on with our lives. Look at the second one here. We can't factor this. The only thing that multiplies to 9 is 3 and 3. And so we're going to actually use the quadratic formula again for this one here. My a is going to be 1, my b is going to be a negative 1, and my c is going to be 9. So when I'm filling in my quadratic formula, we're going to have a positive 1 plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And so when this reduces, we're going to have a 1 minus 36, which is a negative 35. Now, negative 35, if we break it down, we're going to have a negative 1, a 5, and a 7. None of that's going to come out of our radical except the negative 1 because this is our imaginary number. The square root of negative 1 is I. So your final answer here, as simple as we can get, is 1 plus or minus I times the square root of 35 all over 2.